And episode 2 of House of the Dragon, The Rogue Prince, is now history and ready for review. As I sat down to watch it, my hope was that it would give us some edgy conflict so we could sink our teeth into something. Did it deliver? Let's find out. If you're ready, it's rumble time. Let's rumble with the House of the Dragon, episode 2, The Rogue Prince. The opening episode of House of the Dragon gave us very little meaningful conflict or rich character development. So far, the plot is most easily kind of like, oh, these puppies are adorable. If there's one reason to watch The House of the Dragon, it's for its very high production value. It's unlike any show on TV, usurping Game of Thrones for amazing visuals and set designs as far as I'm concerned. I want to give a shout out to the editors who are always the most important piece in finishing any great movie or TV production. Amazing work. I'll keep watching the show just for the production value alone, as there's nothing else like it on TV or the big screen. Wait, what? Rings of Power? Oh, don't worry, those reviews are coming soon. As for the plot, story, and characters in episode 2, things still need work. After watching it a few times, I still feel empty. I don't feel any real conflict that's coming to set this world ablaze, to give the characters a reason for being. The plot feels weak and lacks any life-altering stakes, with the storylines feeling as they're going through the motions, as though they need to move the plot to a certain point by the end of each episode. There seems to be less focus on fully developing the characters, with establishing scenes that give them depth. They're like two-dimensional cardboard cutouts trying to act out a three-dimensional story with a two-dimensional script. All the storylines feel somewhat trivial for an epic fantasy TV show that is supposed to be serving up a heavy dose of dragons and global intrigue. Or at least so I thought. Episode 2 begins with a scene showing us the threat at the Stepstones, Gragas Drahar, the crab feeder. If you're like me, all you're thinking is just send in 7 or 8 dragons and torch the place. In Game of Thrones, it only took 1 dragon to knock down the wall. With 7 or 8, I'm sure you could lay waste to that cave fortress. And who cares what the free cities think? Do you think they want a few dragons flying in for a barbecue? What's the point in having dragons if you don't use them? But that might be the idea, to show a weak and feckless Viserys. Mission accomplished. What it does show is how trivial any threat will be compared to a family with 15 or 16 dragons at their disposal. I'm not even sure how many they have, and that's part of the problem for this series. When you have that kind of firepower, what's there to fear? We need a threat that puts into jeopardy the power structure of the Targaryen's dynasty. The crab feeder dude isn't it. He's just a nuisance and a plot point to move Daemon Targaryen's story forward. And just a reminder, guys, if you want to see all the great videos from Movie Rumble, hit that subscribe button. We have a couple of videos coming at you every single week. Early in episode 2, we're back in the small council chamber. I'm thinking this is the default location where all the plot points of this show will be forged. I'm really liking Corlys Velaryon. At least he walks into the chamber and seems ready to distribute a few backhands to any deserving council members. Movie Rumble logic time. If you're sitting at the small council table and you don't put your ball in the circle, are you still there? What's the point of having a ball if I can see you're there? What am I missing? If a tree falls in the forest and... never mind. Corlys enters the small council chamber, and it seems the crab feeder has attacked and destroyed 4 ships, the last one belonging to him. He demands action, but the king and small council do not want war with the free cities, who apparently support the crab feeder. So the free cities can do whatever they want? If the idea is to show a king that is incapable of making the tough decisions, they are nailing it. The only one with any kahunas in this room is Corlys. Otto cautions him that having a seat at the king's table does not make him his equal. That's interesting. Remember that for later in this review. Does Otto Hightower look like he's one lullaby away from falling asleep? Hey, Otto, wake up, buddy, wake up! Rhaenyra offers up some advice you, me, and Corlys are thinking. Send in the dragons. Otto, wake the hell up! Otto basically treats her like a teenager. Oh wait, she is a teenager. And she gets sent out to find a love interest. I mean a person for the Kingsguard. I think Daemon had Otto Hightower figured out in the first episode when he called him a see you next Tuesday. Rhaenyra inspects the candidates and uses a rigorous review system to weed out the poacher catchers and tournament knights. She picks Criston Cole because she wants to seriously get into his battle experience. So it seems only one knight has seen actual combat? Is this Westeros? There's been no reason for any knight anywhere to take up arms against anyone in all these years. Didn't they just tell us in the first episode how crime was running rampant in the streets of King's Landing? There's no ruffians, marauding bands of renegades, nothing from the Iron Islands. There's no evidence of violence anywhere. Why are we watching this show then? We might as well just be watching... Stop it. Come on, guys, no more puppies. What I really want to know is, do they need those chess pieces to keep track of those knights? Each one does have a bannerman holding their sigil. What irks me is the writers trying to make Rhaenyra look like a brilliant strategist by pointing out the obvious. In the first episode, it was suggesting to use the dragons to solve the problem at the Stepstones. Well, thank God for that nugget, because no one else thought of that one. Now it's picking a candidate for the Knight's Guard who has combat experience. Brilliant! I never considered that as a prerequisite. Or was that the first thing I thought of? This episode has the same issues as the first one had in trying to make us believe and care in the stories that are being told. The Alicent and Viserys romance is about as forced as a story could be. It has no credibility since there was no setup or reason for us to believe in it. If Alicent made even the most minimal attempts to seduce the king in a way that endears him to her, making him fall in love, or even mild affection, then the storyline of him choosing her to be the queen would work. But it falls flat. It's awkward. The writers want us to believe that the gift of Alicent fixing the dragon statue and offering it back as a present to the king is enough to seal the deal and forge a long-lasting relationship. The political benefit of marrying a Hightower is never touched on. There doesn't seem to be any benefit to the Hightower name compared to House Velaryon. So after 3 or 4 scenes of Viserys and Alicent sitting awkwardly together in the same room with the chemistry of mud, we are supposed to believe that there is something between them? Plus, this is your daughter's best friend. Think about that. The writing did nothing to make us believe in the authenticity of this storyline. Alicent and Rhaenyra spend time together in the Sept to pay homage and pray to their mother's memory. Quite frankly, none of this works because they never established the emotional bond in the first place. I was actually hoping to see the High Sparrow walking around in the background so we could add some much-needed life into this dreadfully dull scene.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
I'm only going to touch briefly on the Viserys and 12-year-old Laena courtship stroll. I think Paddy Considine did a good job acting out how awkward that situation would be. Young Laena did bring up the dragon Vhagar, so I assume this is foreshadowing? How do you lose a giant dragon?
Well, where'd you lose him? He ain't a set of fucking car keys, is he? And it's not as if he's inconspicuous now, is it?
One of the underlying themes they seem to be pushing hard in House of the Dragon is how the patriarchal system subdues and keeps women from ever reaching the Iron Throne. Rhaenys tells Rhaenyra that men would sooner put the realm to the torch than to see a woman ascend to the Iron Throne. Didn't we just have 8 seasons of Game of Thrones where Daenerys, Cersei, and Sansa basically ruled all of Westeros? What am I missing? And if you're talking about putting the realm to the torch, did we forget about what Daenerys did to King's Landing? Finally, we get to the meatier part of the episode, and of course, it's Daemon who's trying to stir things up. At an emergency small council meeting, the plot point hatchery, A messenger tells the council that a dragon egg was stolen and that the thief eluded them. King Viserys asks, "How is that possible with 50 dragon keepers?" The dragon keeper answers, "It was Daemon who was the culprit." I thought he asked how, not who, because I was wondering how myself. It's the perfect diversion so as not to have to explain how it was actually stolen. Movie Rumble logic time. So I'm trying to figure out how Daemon, who was banished, just walked into the dragon pit and managed to get past 50 dragon keepers and some 15 dragons to steal the egg. I would think that the eggs are securely locked behind bars and secured doors. Are they not? And that you would have to get through the dragon keepers and a few dragons. And he just walked in and took it? Of course I could be wrong and the eggs are just kept lying open in the first room unattended. Maybe Ezra Miller helped. Sounds like something he'd do. The situation is made worse when it's learned it was Balon's egg that Daemon stole, the baby boy who lived but a few hours. Well, Viserys has had enough with Daemon and proclaims that he is going to Dragonstone to take care of this himself. After telling Corlys earlier that he is not equal to the king, Otto orders King Viserys that he cannot go to Dragonstone. Perhaps someone should tell Otto that having a seat at the king's table does not make him his equal? King's hand or not. Unless my eyes are deceived by some spell, is that belly plate armor Sleepy Otto is wearing? I guess the lungs and heart aren't too important. Here is where House of the Dragon really shines, the scene at Dragonstone. It's magnificent. The CGI is 10 out of 10 and the set is amazing. The standoff with Daemon is easily the best scene in the entire episode, and we are even given a small payoff when Rhaenyra shows up with Syrax and evens the playing field with Caraxes lurking behind Daemon. It's a well-crafted scene that gives Rhaenyra some credibility. Her actions prove to be decisive and correct. Without her, Otto would have been crisp meat. What was he thinking? That Caraxes was off at summer camp and not with Daemon? Why do the characters forget such basic information? But there is a major issue I have with how this scene plays out. Daemon ends up giving up the egg and everything is made right again. What little tension they had, they smothered it with a Daemon that gives in on the first sight of conflict. The writers did it again. They had multiple opportunities to ratchet up the stakes and tension, but they don't. You can end the scene the same way, just create tension, anger, threats, and a more meaningful standoff. We end the episode in the plot point hatchery with King Viserys naming Alicent Hightower as his future queen. Viserys looks over to Rhaenyra as if he's surprised that she has a problem with him marrying her best friend.
I intend to marry the Lady Alicent Hightower.
Episode 2 had a very similar feel to the first episode. It was slow and lacked meaningful conflict. This is the mistake the showrunners have made with this show, not introducing a macro threat that creates the tension so we wonder what will happen next. The dialogue is basic and uninspiring, with storylines that are boring and lack any real stakes to keep our attention. The fact is, it's the incredible production value that makes this show what it is, because it's not the writing or the character development. The setup for most of the storylines falls short of convincing us they are genuine or making us empathize with the characters because they feel forced without establishing a motive or desire. It looks like House of the Dragon is being written as a bunch of smaller, self-contained storylines that try to ebb and flow with each other. This makes the overall feel of the show less threatening, with minimal stakes. There's never the feeling that a character's life has been in danger. I'm giving the production value a 4.5 out of 5 and story and character 2.5 out of 5 for a total score of 7.